Welcome to the presentation. Our presentation today is going to be on competence to pleading guilty. All right. Let me slide this over a bit. So forensic evaluation and legal competence in high profile cases is what I actually looked at for this case in this presentation. And one particular individual, his name is, of course, Dylann Roof. He was the 2015 mass murderer who took 9 churchgoers' lives based off of his false ideologies, which played into paranoia and other aspects that I'll go over within the presentation itself. Okay. All right. So the first things first. What we want to do is we're going to go over the legal and rational and for competence. Okay, the definition. Let's start there first and foremost. Okay, it's the competence to pleading guilty and its significance in the legal system. This concept ensures defendants can knowingly and voluntarily waive their rights. Now, here is where I also brought up the legal legal case with Dusty versus United States in 1960. And pretty much everything I just said is what he covers. And pretty much there's a higher competence threshold for pleading guilty than standing trial due to their rights being forfeited. All right. I took another approach where I looked at psychological aspects and mental health disorders. Here I do have some list of information that I'm going to go over as you follow along on the screen or take information in. I'm going to go ahead and read what I put for this slide to give you a little bit of, insights. Okay. So Dylan's case amplifies the intersection of narcissistic personality disorder and legal competence. His case provides a framework for understanding how psychological traits may and may not affect competence in legal settings. Okay. Roof exhibited traits of NPD, including grandiose and lack of empathy, while 70 to 75% of defendants with superiority complex have cognitive distortions. Roof still understood his legal situation meeting the competence criteria. These are some of the tools that was used to analyze and that is technically used in most cases. So you have the MACCACI, which is MACCACA, sorry, and it's a competence interviews and structured diagnosis methods, as well as observational data that is analyzed with diagnosis, which is what I've already mentioned, and pretty much the differentiation in this case would have been distinguishing genuine mental illness from, again, malignant. All right, let's see this. We're going to go ahead and get to the next slide that does cover legal standards and case application. All right. Competence evaluations, even with Roof's NPD traits, they show that defendants must understand legal proceedings. Legal standards for pleading guilty focuses more on cognitive ability rather than emotional responses. All right. Now, for ethical considerations and self-representation, what I did is I took it a little bit into the biological aspects, and I looked at the brain and the stress responses. And although Roof showed heightened amygdala activity linked to his aggression, common in 60 to 75% actually of offenders with similar traits. Competence evaluations and evaluations prioritize cognitive understanding over emotional responses when assessing defendants' ability to plead guilty. Okay, so pretty much what I did is here, I gave a little quick key point in the bottom or on the screen, as you can see. Ethical issues arise when defendants represent themselves in court. According to APA guidelines 7.01, which is what I tied to it, which is the competence, and then 7.04, which is forensic evaluations. Again, forensic psychologists are required to uphold ethical standards and conclusions and biases when determining a defendant's competence to pleading guilty. In short, the first and foremost 3 things that I always tell people that you should always carry with you in these type of dynamics in regards to occupations is first and foremost morals, integrity, and resilience. Those are the main things you need to keep in focus, especially with dignity and morals, because at the end of the day, you are analyzing someone else's life that's on the line. So with that said, we're going to go to the next slide. And this one is where I pretty much pulled up a little bit of statistical analysis. And as I pulled up a little bit more of the statistical analysis for it, I also noticed that Roof showed heightened, no, sorry, ethical concerns are raised when defendant represents themselves in court. As I said, the 7.04 and 7.01 does tie into how the competence to plead guilty ensures legal integrity and fairness. And that's pretty much what I said a while ago. So you need to have integrity and morals. Those things are the most heightened prospects that you can use within psychology. And that's first and foremost. But that's the main thing of why they have forensic psychologists looking at competency to pleading guilty, is to determine, while also maintaining a equilibrium for both sides, if that makes sense. Sometimes it is a little challenging, but at the end of the day, these are hurdles that we're working through that is pretty much putting it, bringing out more of the positive aspects of this. So although Ruth scored high on risk assessments, statistical analysis shows that 88% of mass offenders exhibit warning signs and don't necessarily correlate it to incompetence to pleading guilty. The distinction between behavioral risk and cognitive competence is crucial for forensic evaluations. Again, this is why I say this is the risk model, because the risk model does show that at least if there's at least 88% that we have noticed within psychology, that we can make that transition as long as we have some procedures that's in order that helps us stay guided within understanding the competence to pleading guilty. All right. As we come to our conclusion here, we have Ruth's case highlights the importance of distinguishing between behavioral risk factors and cognitive competence in forensic evaluations. By adhering to APA ethical standards and diagnosis criteria, forensic psychologists help ensure that justice is upheld. Here is where I have some takeaways, which is pretty much competence equals differentiation, but risk from cognition. Ethical evaluations are critical for justice in high-profile cases. I also wanted to leave a quote that I thought would be good for anyone to always fall back on when considering competence to pleading guilty, which is "Justice is served when the law meets ethics" by Ryan Kelly. Outside of that, as much as I enjoyed this, I really did enjoy this presentation. I wanted to include a little bit more information, but I don't want to go over time factors, or I want to stay within that time zone. I do have a slide here going as we close out this presentation. So it's your turn to think like a forensic scientist, forensic psychologist. So in this case, I gave you a scenario-based question as well as a discussion poll. And in this case, hopefully you'll be able to see how we were able to, come from having little insight to having way more insight that can actually help alleviate some of these risk factors that we are coming across. I do have some references here. With that said, I think that's it. And thank you for watching and tuning in. Hope you have a great day.